Alright everyone, what's going on? Needs more drums in Farming Simulator 25 to bring you a tutorial series about how to get started with the game and learn some basic game mechanics and just to get you on your feet if you are new to the Farming Simulator series. If you're not new to the series, there still might be some useful tips in here for you, so feel free to stick around. I would greatly appreciate that as well. But to start, we're just going to go over how to set up a game and then go over some of the, the different settings that you can change. And then once we get in game, I want to show you guys just kind of how to navigate some of the menus, purchase land, and I would like to discuss some of the settings that I use that I find very helpful, and that I really enjoy when I play the game. So to start, we're going to click on our career mode here, and you can see that we have a bunch of different game saves that pop up. So we're just going to choose an empty slot. So we'll just choose the slot 5 here. And then that brings us to this menu where we have our save game options. So the first thing, we can click between the different maps. And so I'm actually going to use Riverbend Springs because I'm familiar with this map and it's the American map and I like American maps. But then we have different presets that we could choose from. The first is New Farmer, which will give you a very limited amount of money. However, you have no starting loan. Crop prices are high. So that's the economic difficulty, is basically just how high the prices are going to be for your products. And the big thing about New Farmer mode is that you get a starting farm with equipment and land already. So you don't have to like build a farm from scratch. You'll have buildings, you'll have, in this one, I think you actually have animals, you have, all the essential equipment. And then you can also have the guided intro tour. Now, all of these settings can be changed. So I'll say that up front. But if we click through the options here, we have New Farmer and then we have Farm Manager. Farm Manager is different than New Farmer in the sense that you have a lot of starting money, but you don't own anything from the start. So you don't have any buildings, you don't have any land, you don't have any equipment. You have to buy everything yourself. So it gives you a little bit more of creative freedom if you're familiar with actually what you need to get started in the game, and you know what equipment you need to buy from the start, and you just want to have a free reign to be creative. I would recommend Farm Manager, but if you're brand new to the game, you should just go right for New Farmer mode. You'll jump in really quick. You can learn some of the basic mechanics, and you have a lot of the things provided to you, and it takes out all the guesswork of having to choose the right equipment. So we'll discuss some equipment types a little bit later on in the series, but for now, I would recommend New Farmer mode. But finally, if you're really feeling up for a challenge and you learn the game a little bit better, Start from Scratch mode is the third and final game mode that you can choose. You can, you start with a little bit less money, but you also start with a loan, hard difficulty, so the prices are significantly lower, and then you don't have a farm or the guided intro tour. Now, like I said, all of these settings are actually toggleable in this game, so you can choose your starting money, you could choose your loan, you could choose your difficulty. So the next menu that you'll see once you click continue is the mods and DLC menu. This is very straightforward. We could go through a quick tutorial about how to download mods a little bit later on, but essentially if you go to the downloadable content menu, when you open up the game, you'll see a list of mods that you can download. And then so from here, if it's highlighted green, that means it's installed. Now if I double click, it is now uninstalled. It is gray. So I'm actually going to uninstall all of the ones that are actually going to alter gameplay and that I've installed by people other than Giant. So Giant Software actually makes downloadable vehicles and equipment that could be installed into the game from time to time. Upon release, they had all these out, so I just installed these because these are directly from, it's essentially like free DLC, right? So why not download these? Just go to the mod downloadable content section, and then you can find all of these, and it'll say that the publisher is a Giant Software, and there you go. So they're direct from the developer, but all of these are made by third parties, so I'm gonna leave these uninstalled for now. All right, now the next menu that'll first appear when you load into your first save game the first time will be the character customization menu. So this is pretty straightforward, like any other customization menu. You could choose from various faces, various hairstyles, facial hairstyles, preset outfits that are just, well, preset. Or you can kind of pick and choose your outfit as you see fit. So, you choose a different shirt, choose different pants, and you can change the color on these as well. Boots, hats, and helmets and things like that. And then gloves, and finally glasses. And so once you're happy with your character, you could just press escape or this confirm button down here, and it'll put you in the game. So the first thing that I want to go over is actually how to navigate the minimap. But now if I press escape, it pulls up the whole minimap. So if we zoom out using the mouse wheel, we could see there's just a lot of colors, a lot of icons. It could be a little bit overwhelming at first, but don't worry, we're going to talk through what all of this means, and it's really not that bad, I promise. So all of these things with numbers are fields that you could purchase or already own. This top selection window up here will allow you to scroll through different overlays on the map. And so the first thing, the default one is crop types. So these different colors on the fields correspond to a certain crop type. You could see on the menu here that each of these crops has a color. And so for example, if you look at canola is this like bright green. If I click it, you could see down here that some of these fields are changing from green to brown. So you can actually change what crops you see in the overlay. You can see as I'm clicking through, these ones are appearing and disappearing. And so that's just to show you kind of which fields have which crops on them. And now if we scroll through, the next one is the growth menu. And so this just shows you the different states of different crops in your fields. And so we have, everything from stubble tillage, cultivated, plowed, which are different, states of the dirt. You could also see the growth stages of crops, like such as all these, where the darker ones mean that they are almost fully grown, whereas a light green means that they're just planted. The next menu is the soil composition menu, which we will talk about more in later episodes, but essentially this just shows you things that impact the quality of your crop, such as weeds, if it's fertilized, if it needs lime, rolling. These are all just things that, impact your crop yield. So you want to make sure that your fields have the correct soil composition to achieve the highest desired yield. And now this next menu is just like different hotspots around the map. So you can see different vehicles that you have purchased. Obviously, we don't have any yet. So this will just show you the different types of vehicles that you have, whether that be a combine, a trailer, a tool, or even an automated worker. You'll see them driving around. And again, with all these, just like the crops, you could toggle them on and off by just clicking on them. And then if you go look over at this next section here, this is different types of buildings. So tip stations are areas where you could dump, your crops to sell them or store them. Loading stations are where you can fill a trailer with something, such as something that you would buy, like fuel is a filling station or a loading station. You can see here we have liquid manure, lime station. So lime is something that you can use to help increase your yield every so often. So that's something that you want to pay attention to. And then the next one is productions. So that's something new that's in FS25 and was introduced in FS22. That's just going to be different, factories and things where you can sell your products and then eventually produce goods down the line. And then this one is just animals, different animal pens. So you can see there are a bunch of beehives here. If we buy some land with animal pens on it, like cows or pigs or anything like that, those would appear on the map as well. These are contracts. So contracts, we can get into that in a second, but essentially you can help other people around the map by doing work in their fields using your equipment or leasing equipment from the store. And then finally, this is just other things like typically non-playable characters, like I said at the beginning, that can offer you different tutorials and advice. And then things like the train and the warehouse and the store. So just important landmarks on the map. Animal dealer as well, that's an important one. So you can just click through those and just kind of get a sense of what is all on the map. So now this menu is where I want to go for the next portion of this tutorial. And so this is the farmland menu. So as you can see, it gets a little bit darker of an overlay. So you can actually see if it has this kind of gray overlay, then that means you don't own the land. If we click on a plot of land to select it, it turns this green color and we could see the size of it and how much it would cost to buy. And then if we choose to buy this, it'll turn a very bright green color. So I actually want to purchase fields 82 and 83. So I'm going to buy that. Yes, I would like to buy this land. I'm going to do the same for 83, and you can see that it changes color. So we can see the land that we own and the land that we do not own. And then these last two tabs here have to do with AI workers. So we're going to leave those for now and skip those. Now, the next menu that I want to talk through is the crop calendar. So the crop calendar, we're going to discuss a little bit in more detail once we actually start planting crops. But what you need to know is that by default, the game has a seasonal growth pattern. So you could see these green lines are when you can plant crops. The orange lines are when you can harvest them. And so you can only plant certain crops at certain times of the year. And then you can also see all of your upcoming weather, which is important because certain activities cannot be done in the rain. And again, we'll get to that a little bit later. This is our animal pen menu. We have no animal pen, so ignore that. This is our contract menu. Like I mentioned previously, you can actually offer to help other farmers on the map by accepting contracts. And then if you do the job that they are asking, they will pay you and you can collect this reward. We're not going to do any contracts right now though, so we're going to skip this. This is your production menu. And this is nice because you can actually go through and see what productions are available on the map. This is new to FS25, which I really like. And you can see, like, for example, if we have grain and we want to start a production at the grain mill, we could see, you know, the recipe for these various outputs that can be made in the grain mill. So if we wanted to harvest wheat and make wheat flour, we could deliver wheat and then we would get 4 flour for every 5 wheat. However, you do have to purchase the production to be able to actually take advantage of these recipes. And we'll get to that in a separate video, but we do not currently own any, and we're not going to own any right now. So we're just going to move on from here. The next menu is the prices, and obviously this is pretty straightforward. Every single product that you can make or grow in the game has a buy or sell point. So if we look at wheat, like we were talking about in the productions menu, we could see that these are the locations where you could buy or sell the product. And so you can see the distance from our player, which is a nice new feature. We could see that we cannot buy wheat anywhere. However, we can sell it. And these are the current prices that are being offered. And we'll get more in depth into this in a later episode when we actually talk about selling products. But you could use the graph here as well to compare the current sale price to the lowest and the highest prices. And now I want to go through some basic game settings before we actually jump in and do some farming. So in the settings menu, you could save your game, you can quit your game, you could look at the help book that will give you some high-level tutorials about certain components of the game. But I want to talk through some of the settings that I find really helpful and just give me the best experience when playing the game. And this is all personal preference, so feel free to change these to, you know, however you see fit. But let's go ahead and start with the game settings menu. So if we click here, we can see that we have the option to pause the game, which I'm going to do. This just stops the time, nothing serious there. We can name our save game. And now we can also choose our autosave interval. Personally, I like to have this off because I just don't like the lag spikes that come with autosaving. This is our time scale. So we have everything from half time to real time to all the way up to 360 times speed in the base game. Now there are mods that can improve that or, you know, change that, but this is just what is included in the base game. Again, as we talked about at the beginning, we have different economic settings. So here is the normal mode. We can also change to hard or easy mode. All it does is affect crop prices, so you can actually just change. And the revenue of contracts. Sorry about that. But yes, crop prices and the revenue of contracts are all based on this factor. So we're going to leave it on normal for now. Traffic toggle, I like traffic on. It's realistic. Now here's one important part of the newer FS games. So in FS22 and FS25, seasons was introduced as a base game function. So seasonal growth, if you have it selected to yes, the crop calendar that we just looked at here is important. If you have it set to yes, then you can only plant and harvest crops in the month in which the calendar says that they can be planted and harvested. If you turn this off, you can plant and harvest crops at any time and it doesn't matter. So that's just personal preference. I like to play with seasonal growth on because I think it's realistic. However, if you just want to plant and harvest real quick to just get a feel for how that is, feel free to set that to no if you're new to the game. Finally, the days per month. You could change this anywhere from 1 day to, I think, 30 days. And personally, I like to have this on 3 days. I think that 3-day months with ×5 speed is the most comfortable game setting. If you don't want to do that, my second recommendation would be 1-day months on a ×2 game setting. I think that gives you enough time to get through kind of the different growth calendars or the different months and the different growth patterns for the crops and still taking advantage of the seasonal gameplay. So either of those options I think is very suitable and you'll find very comfortable. Now the fixed visual month, this one is pretty important if you have seasonal growth off. So if you have this set to no, then you can choose which month it's going to look like. So you can just go obviously through all the months. But we're going to have this as off for now because we want to progress through the months. I like the seasons. And then finally, if you want snow on or off, just choose that there. Now these crops and growth, this is another important menu. So crop destruction means that if you drive over your crops, they will be destroyed and then they will stop growing. Obviously not the whole field, but you'll leave tire tracks, and then wherever your tire tracks are, your crops will get destroyed. So I like to have this on for realism. Periodic plowing required is another kind of realistic preference function. I like to have this on. Some people like to have this off. So what this means is every 2 harvests, I believe, you have to plow your field. So like, you do, it would be, I guess, every 3rd technically. So, you harvest once, you can just cultivate, you harvest twice, you can just cultivate. And then no, it is every 2. So sorry about that. But anyway, periodic plowing required. You will have to plow your fields every once in a while to keep yields high. And that's kind of a realistic function because, in real life, deep tilling every single year or plowing every single year is not good for the soil. However, it is important to deep till every once in a while to kind of flip the soil that is lower with more nutrients, to flip that to the top to make a better seed bed. So it is, a realistic setting to kind of have this on. Fieldstone, I actually like to have this off. I think fieldstones are a nuisance and there's not much equipment in the game to deal with them, so I just don't. However, this is just, if fieldstone's on, you'll have little rocks that pop up in your field and you have to remove them. Otherwise, they will damage your equipment more. Lime required. Lime is a mineral that you spread on your field to keep the crop yield high. I like to have this on. I think it's realistic. Weeds, same thing. I like to have this on. If you have this off, weeds will not grow in your field and will not impact your crop yield. If you have this on, weeds will grow in your field. And if you don't deal with them or get rid of them, then they will negatively impact your yield. And so the next thing is this disaster destruction. So this is new in FS25. If you have this enabled, tornadoes will come through and destroy your crops and actually, negatively impact your yield. Visuals only means that the yield will stay the same. It'll just look like the crops are destroyed. And then disabled just turns destruction off altogether. Even so, if a tornado comes through, it just won't do anything. I'll keep this enabled for realism purposes. And then these last couple things, just vehicle control. First one is dirt. How dirty does your vehicle get and how fast does it get dirty? You can do this normal, slow, fast, or off. I like normal. Automatic engine start. I like to actually have this off because I think that it's just fun to press the button to start the engine. Otherwise, it'll just do it for you. So I'm going to leave that off for now. Stop and go braking, I'm going to leave this off as well. This is actually, if you come to a stop and you keep your foot on the brake, then it will automatically shift into reverse. I like to shift into reverse manually, so I'm going to keep this off. Trailer fill limit, this has to do with volume versus weight. So if you have this on, then your trailer can only be filled to a max weight and not necessarily the full volume. If you have this off, which is my preferred setting, you can take advantage of a trailer's full volume. And then finally, fuel usage. You can have this set to normal, high, or low. Personally, I actually like to set this on high because I feel like you never go through fuel in the game quickly at all. So yeah, it's super unrealistic to only fill up your tractor like once every 2 years. So when you have it on high, it just is a little bit more frequent. And the AI workers, we won't get into this now since we're not going to be using AI workers, but just know that this is available here as well. So the final setting menu that we'll go through and the final thing that we'll do in this episode is talk about the general settings. So we can just see like some settings for the game. If we want the help window, which this can also be toggled by pressing the F1 key when you're in the game. All this does is show on this side of the screen over here, it'll show the controls for whatever equipment or vehicle you're in. So I just leave this off, but then just toggle it with the F1 key. Colorblind mode, self-explanatory. Interactive zone markers and info triggers. So these just show like different icons and little black and yellow squares kind of on the ground to show you you know, areas that you can interact with, right? Like if you could fill a trailer at an area, or if there's a zone where you can unload your trailer to sell your products, you know, those would appear with these. And then finally, field info. I like to have this on. If you walk up to a field, it'll show you information about it, such as what crop is growing, how fertilized it is, you know, the size of it, etc., etc. So that's important to me, so I'm going to keep that on. And next, just your units, personal preference, whether you want imperial or metric. Radio, I keep this usually off because I like to listen to my own music. And then here's some camera options. So reset the vehicle camera. It remembers the camera position for each vehicle once you exit it. Personally, I like this off because it'll just reset the camera to the center every time. Indoor camera suspension, I like to have that on because it bounces around, just as more realistic. Dynamic vehicle camera. This is, the camera will try to stay horizontal with the environment. Interesting. So that probably is just personal preference as well. I'll probably keep this on for now, since, you know, I don't really care either way. And then invert Y look, just invert the Y axis. I have that off. And then here are just some controls for your controller input. Easy arm has to do with cranes. If you have, you know, a keyboard and mouse, I would highly recommend keeping this on. If you have a joystick, you know, maybe you might want to turn this off, but I just keep it on anyway. I think it's fine. And then just a couple of things like sensitivity, steering back speeds. Nothing crazy here. Direction change. So this determines if you want to shift between forward and reverse manually, or if you want the game to do it automatically. I like to have it manually. Same with the gear shift mode. So there are manual transmissions in this game. You can choose from automatic, manual, or manual with clutch. I have a full steering wheel with a clutch pedal and a stick shift, so I'm going to choose the manual with clutch options. However, this is only for vehicles with manual transmissions. If the vehicle has a CVT or automatic transmission, then this doesn't matter. All that you have to do is go to drive and reverse. And then it's just, you know, it shows what you want to display on your gauge down here in the bottom right. There's going to be an engine speed, or you can have it set to vehicle speed. Switch to trains. I'm actually going to turn that off because I don't want to switch through my vehicles and then suddenly end up in the train. And then this will focus on, in the control menu up here on the left that I mentioned, that will pop up in game, the help menu. You can choose whether you want this to show keyboard controls, gamepad controls, or just set it automatically based on the preferred input at the time. So I just usually leave this set to auto. And then wood harvester, automatic cutting. This has to do with logging, so we're just gonna, that's irrelevant right now. And then finally, just your audio settings. So I'm not going to go into controls because that is completely personal preference. However, I will say that there have been some control issues with starting up the game and people plugging in a bunch of different peripherals like controllers, pedals, steering wheels, etc., where the control mapping isn't always the most, you know, straightforward or functional. I will say though, my solution is when I input a control, I have to first clear it out. So I would have to press backspace and make sure that this is completely cleared out before I assign a new control to it. The keyboard I didn't have any issues with, but I did have some issues with my farm stick, getting that set up, so my joystick. So if you have any questions about control problems or anything like that, just leave a comment below and I'd be happy to try to help you out as best I can. But just know that if you're trying to reassign a control, just completely clear it first and then reassign it rather than just overriding it with the new key. So you have the option here to press backspace to clear it, or you could just press the key that you want to assign to it. I would press backspace first, then click it again, and then press the key that you want to assign to it. So just 2 steps instead of 1, but it'll work better. But that's pretty much it. Welcome to FS25. Sorry this was a little bit of a longer video, but there's a lot to cover. In the next video, we're going to dive into how to navigate the shop, purchase some equipment, and talk about what equipment types you'll need to get started. So stay tuned for that. And until then, have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you guys in the next video. See ya.